The Crow isn't a singular person. It's a mantle shared by many. Out of several worthy candidates who took the role, in our video, we're going to be examining Iris Shaw, a young federal agent who was unjustly killed for wanting to protect the environment. What will happen when the supernatural power gives her one last chance to avenge her death? Find out in this video. But before we get into that explanation, we do have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. The Crow, unraveling the mysteries of justice and revenge. Back in 1978, comic artist James O'Barr lost someone very important to him. James lost his girlfriend in a drunk driving incident. This grief and loss led to the artist painting the picture of someone who was willing to avenge the death of a loved one. He wanted to immortalize his love for his girlfriend, and as a love letter to her, he created The Crow. Published in 1989, the Crow comic book series follows the titular character who goes by the moniker The Crow. This vigilante anti-hero is created when a person and their loved one are killed under unjust circumstances. With the loss comes grief. This grief brings the supernatural Crow to the one unjustly killed. With their help, the dead individual is brought back to life with all the powers necessary to make their killers pay for their untimely death. Once they're back, the person takes on the name of The Crow and focuses on their sole goal, avenging their loved ones and their death. As you can understand from the premise, this title is not fixed to one person like the title of Deadpool. Over the years, there have been several unfortunate people who have taken the role of the Crow and avenged their deaths. Today, we'll take a look at the story of Iris Shaw, the first ever female Crow. Who is the first female Crow? Out and about in a small town, things have been looking rough for Iris Shaw, an officer working for the Bureau of Land Management who has new issues at hand. Last month, while Shaw was venturing out on the federal land that fell under the Bureau's jurisdiction, she noticed two people dumping some. Upon getting closer, she recognized them as two farmers. They were dumping waste on federal land, something she was keeping an eye out for, but there was more to this visit than that. The farmers had come out here with a truck. While they were going back and forth about the illegal dumping of waste, Iris noticed the back of the pickup truck. It was filled with dead coyotes, but Iris couldn't see a single open wound on any of the animals. It was clear to her that the animals were being poisoned. This led to Iris asking the farmers if they had been spreading poison in an open range, which, as you can probably guess, is extremely illegal. These men made it clear from their response that they had been getting paid to spread the poison, and they didn't think that they were doing any wrong. Previously, it was a thing to scare off predators and protect their farm animals, so why does it matter if they kill a few coyotes? She tries to tell them that what they're doing is unlawful, but the farmers were adamant. They told Iris that she wasn't God just because she was a federal agent. They shoved her and threatened to keep her in her lane, otherwise she would end up in big trouble. But Iris wasn't weak. She knew that whatever they were doing wasn't okay, and she was willing to do whatever it took to resolve the issue. After a month, she had a lead. She was after those farmers who killed the coyotes, and an anonymous man had told her that he could do that for her. He would call her later in the evening, and Iris decided to wait in her office for just that. The janitor, Tony, who was mopping the floor, told Iris to be careful as she walked through the corridors, waiting for the call. Fred, her co-worker, offered to stay behind, but Iris insisted that he go home. Fred refused, stating that he had nothing better to do anyway. As they talked, the clock ticked away. The moment the clock struck 7:15, a huge explosion rattled the office. This explosion claimed the lives of everyone on the premises, including the innocent Mrs. Burke, who was just about to enter the place. Iris heard her name being called. She opened her eyes and came face to face with the Crow. The Crow spoke to her, informing her of her new goal, to avenge her death. She asked why she was given this chance, and the Crow said that grief has its own music. Her town has been suffering through so much grief that it has turned into a symphony. Now, her grief in particular was one solo song that endured, that beckoned the Crow to visit, and so he did. He came to the town and resurrected her. She asked if she was a zombie, and the Crow told her not to care about such labels. She should instead focus on her goal, finding those farmers and killing them. Iris asks why she was brought back because she wasn't the only one who was harmed by the farmers. So why her? That's when we learn the heart-wrenching truth. Iris was pregnant at the time of her death, and the worst part, she knew that she was pregnant. The loss of her unborn baby is what made her grief so prominent, so loud, that the Crow had to show up. Realizing her purpose, Iris stepped up to her role. She dressed in all black and started out her journey. The first person that she paid a visit to was a guy named Rick. With her calling him baby, it becomes very clear that Rick and Iris were dating. Seeing her back on her feet after burying her surprised Rick. He runs out of the house in a panicked frenzy and ends up shooting Iris, but as she was already dead, she wasn't too fazed. She gives him a few kisses to calm him down and get him back in the house. Iris told Rick that she understood why he was scared of her and expressed regret for showing up out of nowhere. Iris also explained that she wasn't sure if she would ever see him again, especially after she told him about her pregnancy. Iris never got the option to choose whether she wanted to keep the baby or not. As she couldn't do so, she decided to show up and meet Rick to see if Rick was mourning their relationship as well. Rick said that he just needed a little bit of time after learning about this unplanned pregnancy. As Rick explained his side of the story, Iris noticed the suitcase next to it. At first, Iris understood the unpacked suitcase as Rick wanted to leave the house and the town behind because Iris was no longer there. But when Iris tries to kiss him and get him to spend a night with him, Rick pushes her away. This makes it clear to Iris that Rick was actually going to leave her after he learned of her pregnancy. So he had packed the suitcase, but now that she and the baby were dead, Rick had nothing to leave behind. So he was unpacking it. Realizing this harsh truth, Iris asked Rick to pack his things up. With Rick leaving her behind, Iris closed the one chapter of her life that was left open after her death. With that loose end tied up, she could now focus on getting revenge on the man who killed her off, as she told the Crow. The Crow asked Iris about her first stop. Iris told him that they were now going to Rowdy's during happy hour. Hearing that, the Crow wondered out loud if this would make her happy. Iris confirmed that it would, because it would be the most accessible place to get the names of the farmers who attacked her. This was an all-out war, and Iris wasn't going to do it without her war paint. She went to her bedroom to draw a crow on her face before she made her way into the bar. Iris announced her presence when she entered Rowdy's. She informed the people, and most of them knew her, and they also knew who killed her. She explained the purpose of her visit, to get the names of her killers. As you can guess, the bar patrons weren't too happy to see the once dead girl suddenly up and alive. One of the people tried to kill her, but they didn't have to take a step forward before Iris fired the gun in the bar. She made it clear that hurting them wasn't on her agenda, but if they didn't give her the name of the man who ended her life, she wouldn't think twice before getting violent. With the situation at hand being tense, the people at the bar decided to sell the men out. They were able to give her the name of one of the killers. Her first target was Wayne. Iris finds Wayne in the blink of an eye. However, much to the Crow's chagrin, instead of killing Wayne on sight, Iris let him run away in his truck. As Iris stood on Wayne's dilapidated porch, watching his truck drive farther and farther away, she explained that killing someone is easy, something a 12-year-old, but she didn't just want to kill him. No, she wanted vengeance, and that took some sweet time. As Iris guessed he would, Wayne drove all the way to his partner in crime's house, a man named Marty. Wayne explained in haste that people at Rowdy's sold him out, to which Marty responded with hatred. Marty thought it was incredibly stupid of Wayne to drive over to his house just because Wayne's location was compromised. But before the two bros could actually go and get rid of the truck, Iris showed up. Seeing her, the two men tried to run away, but Iris was way quicker. She shot both of them, but the injuries weren't fatal. This struck Marty as odd. He asked why she didn't just finish them off, and to that, Iris replied with the story of Mrs. Burr. Poor Mrs. Burr, who had never hurt a soul, was buried under a pile of rubble and slowly bled to death just because she was at the office at the wrong time. So, Iris wanted them to experience the same pain that Mrs. Burke had felt. She dragged the two boys into a hole she had dug and buried them alive, leaving them to slowly bleed to death while suffocating. Seeing just how she delivered her justice, the Crow was delighted at being in Iris's company. With the havoc she had been wreaking, Iris was soon being tailed by the FBI and the sheriff of the town. But she didn't know that. Back at her own place, having dealt with Wayne and Marty, Iris realized that she couldn't heal. The Crow explained that she has a time limit on how long she can walk the planet. Iris joked that it would be ideal if she could finish her journey before she ended up rotting. But before the two could get even more friendly, the Crow noted that there was someone at the door. Turns out it was the FBI agents. They noticed that Rick, Iris's baby daddy, had left town, and then they heard about Iris's appearance at Rowdy's. As Iris's death was part of a federal investigation, having some girl who looked just like her messing around with the evidence and roughhousing the suspects was not something the government wanted. But who would have guessed that this girl who looked like her, as the agents were told, would turn out to be Iris herself? When the man breaks through the door, Iris points the stapler gun that she had used to patch herself up at him. The man, as she identified, was G-Man, someone from the government. G-Man was extremely surprised to see Iris, but he knew that she could be violent, so he didn't put his gun down. Instead, the man shot her. On being attacked, Iris jumped on him like a cat and tackled him swiftly, pinning his necktie to the wall. With the man now immobilized, Iris told him to try not to make any sense of this whole thing and ran out of the window. She got in the car and started driving away, dodging the sheriff and other FBI agents. However, the way the sheriff stared at her took a toll on Iris. She knew that what she was doing was just. It was right. However, she hadn't thought about how other people might perceive her. Understandably, now that she was on the run from the FBI, the people that she had worked with, she realized that she had become a demon in their eyes, but this was only one tiny part of the realization. The other part of her reflection was that Iris realized her death was part of a more significant chain event that was greater than herself. It was clear that the evil she was fighting had been growing in her town for a long time, and now, despite being undead, Iris had to make the call and pull the plug. The Crow mentioned that maybe, just maybe, if Iris had left this town and lived amongst civilized people in the city, she would have been alive right now. While Iris couldn't refute this logic, she made it clear that she didn't want to leave the town because all of these people were people she grew up with. The cowboys and the hermits that the Crow referred to were her people, and she didn't want to abandon them. Iris explained that in rural towns like this, everyone's opinion has to matter. She joined the Bureau of Land Management, hoping to protect what was pure for them. But now that she's seeing the greater picture, it's far too late, and there is no other way. With this, Iris steeled herself mentally for her next encounter and showed up at a trailer. In that trailer, a few hunters were hiding. It's clear that these men were associated with Marty and Wayne because we see them looking for two boys Iris had buried. On seeing Iris, one of the hunters fired at her. Despite hitting her skull, much to his surprise, Iris didn't die. She instead held one of his friends hostage and asked the man to shoot him. This man, Willis, realizes that it's better to give Iris what she wants and shoot his friend, but before he could shoot Iris, Iris incapacitated him with a bullet. Willis was left bleeding out on the floor with his friends surrounding him. Iris asked Willis for the name of the man who was behind all of this, and Willis, in his dying breath, disclosed the name Ray Henderson. Iris didn't want to kill Willis because he had nothing to do with the bomb, and neither did his friends, but she knew this was necessary for the information. So, now that she had the name of the main guy behind everything, she didn't feel bad when she obliged Willis's request to kill him. She went to the kitchen and turned on the gas, setting the whole trailer on fire with a match. Now, coming back to Ray Henderson, this man is a local guy who doesn't want to share his land with anyone, not even the animals. He wanted to use every inch of his land to get grains, and this is why he was out there killing animals. Before the whole run-in with Iris happened, Ray was more focused on civil disobedience and getting the government away from it, out of his business. But his actions made things take a turn for the worse. Things became a bit tough for Ray and he had to pay a hefty fine. On top of that, he was asked by the government to give up a certain amount of land so that cattle could graze on. When Iris caught his men dumping out dead animals, Ray knew this wouldn't end well for him. If she brought the feds back, Ray would end up in jail. This put Iris on his naughty list, and Ray decided to surprise Iris with a bomb. Iris was stalking Ray, watching him from the hill with a sniper aimed at him. If she wanted to, she could take him out right then and there, but instead, she decided to put fear into it. Ray was standing outside with some men and his son. Iris wanted him to feel the pain similar to losing a child. So, to make him scared for the kid, Iris shot the man who was next to him. This pushed Ray to run back inside and stay away from the windows. Iris got in her Jeep and drove up to his house, making it clear that she was after him before leaving. Ray's people wanted him to reach out to the feds, but Ray refused because he finally had the feds off his back. So, now there wasn't much he could do besides wait. Iris returned to a building named Kevin's. There, she wiped away the raven on her face. She did so to make sure everyone recognized her and remembered whose kid they killed. The Crow realized that maybe Iris wanted to keep the baby. He asked her, but Iris ignored the answer. Instead, she got ready and set out to meet someone she knew Ray was in contact. There was a local guy named Bryce. He was popular for having his cronies, and it didn't take Iris long to figure out that Bryce was the one who pushed Ray into killing her. So she shows up at Bryce's place. She subdued his men without much of an issue and caught Bryce. In a moment, she had slit Bryce's throat just enough to keep him bleeding, but not profusely, and hung him upside down from the ceiling. She did so to avenge the death of the marshal, whose body was scattered on the street like roadkill due to the explosion, while Bryce's blood made its way to his head and slowly killed him in the most painful way possible. Iris called Ray and informed him that their showdown would happen tomorrow morning. Iris told the sheriff about the showdown as well and surrendered the gun she had taken from a young agent to him. Now Iris realized that she is at the end of her mission and made peace with it, knowing that once everything was over, she'd go back to being dead. Iris went to Ray's house early in the morning and killed his men in a tense shootout. Ray was hiding inside his house the entire time. Over the years, Ray's family had come to detest his behavior, so when Ray said he wouldn't be the only one to die, his family gave him up in an instant. This felt like losing a child and a family to Ray. He surrendered to Iris, who took him in her Jeep. In the Jeep, Iris mentioned that she could have had a family if he hadn't killed her while she was pregnant. Iris explained that whatever she did now, she did it for everyone who was killed by Ray as she poured gasoline on herself. But what she did in his house, she added, turning his family against him, that she did for her own flesh and blood. With that said, Iris lit a match and flames engulfed both of them in an instant, bringing an end to her time as the Crow. Marvelous verdict! James O'Barr has a beautiful art style. The realistic expressions on Iris's face as she steels herself to get vengeance are something you can feel through to your core as you watch the story unfold. The Crow has always been grim and macabre, but with at least a little bit of hope in it. But in this particular story, the only thing I felt was rage. Even though this comic is fully black and white, you can almost see the red that Iris feels in her heart, having her family taken away from her. As the female Crow, Iris left quite the impression on her town, as well as readers of the book. That's all for this time, but if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.